Every legend starts somewhere. For Sidney Crosby, it began not in a grand arena, but in the small basement of his home in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia. Before Olympic gold, Stanley Cups, and the weight of a franchise on his shoulders, he was just a boy with a stick, a ball, and a dream too big to stay hidden. Cole Harbour was a modest, working-class town. It wasn't known for producing hockey stars, but it gave Crosby something even more valuable: humility, discipline, and family values. His father, Troy, once drafted by the Montreal Canadiens, never made the NHL, but his love for the game lit a fire in his young son. Sidney was barely 2 when he began shooting pucks into a net in the basement. Neighbors still remember the thud of the ball against the dryer and the sharp crack of his stick. Hours of practice from a boy who simply refused to stop. By 5, he was scoring so many goals in youth leagues that parents whispered it was unfair. Coaches noticed his gift. He didn't just play the game, he thought it ahead of everyone else. What truly separated him wasn't just talent, but discipline. Sidney repeated drills until they became instinct. He didn't chase fun, he chased perfection. And with that came attention, pressure, and envy. By 10, some rivals claimed he was too good for local leagues. But his family kept him grounded. His mum, Trina, reminded him character mattered more than goals, while his dad taught him to focus only on what he could control. At 13, Crosby took the bold step of leaving home to play at Shattuck-St, a Minnesota prep school known for molding future stars. Surrounded by the best young talent in North America, he didn't just keep up, he dominated, scoring 72 goals and 162 points in one season. Scouts knew then, this was no ordinary prospect. This was a generational player in the making. By 16, he joined Rimouski in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, where he became a national phenomenon. He wasn't just scoring, he was controlling games, dictating the pace, making veterans look powerless. The media crowned him the next one, comparing him to Gretzky and Lemieux. At just 17, Crosby carried the weight of a country's hope, and instead of crumbling, he rose. The boy from Cole Harbour had become a symbol. His dream was no longer just his own. It was the dream of an entire nation. And as the NHL draft loomed, one thing was clear. Sidney Crosby wasn't just chasing greatness. He was destined to change hockey forever. By 17, Sidney Crosby wasn't just a teenager chasing a dream. He was a national headline, the answer to Canada's biggest question: who will carry the torch after Wayne Gretzky? In Rimouski, he dominated like few ever had. 66 goals, 168 points in just 62 games. Scouts didn't just praise him, they spoke of him in awe. He controlled games, thought the play ahead of everyone, and played with a fire that screamed leadership. Soon, a title followed him everywhere. The next one. For most, it would crush them. For Crosby, it was fuel. Then, the 2004 NHL lockout canceled an entire season. While fans groaned, it turned Crosby into the sport's heartbeat. With the NHL frozen, all eyes shifted to junior hockey, and Crosby became the star keeping the game alive. When the league returned in 2005, anticipation for the draft was electric. The NHL held a special lottery, 16 teams, one chance at the prize. On July 22, destiny pointed to a franchise on life support, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Once mighty with Mario Lemieux, the team was drowning in financial troubles, empty seats, and relocation rumors. But that summer, everything changed. Pittsburgh had won the right to draft Sidney Crosby. For the Penguins, it was salvation. For Crosby, it was responsibility. On July 30 in Ottawa, he pulled on the Penguins jersey for the first time, standing beside Lemieux himself, the past passing the torch to the future. From the moment he hit training camp, reporters swarmed. Teammates marveled at his intensity. This wasn't a rookie happy to be there, it was a rookie determined to lead. He proved it right away. On October 5, 2005, Crosby recorded his first NHL point, then his first goal days later. The floodgates opened. He ended his rookie season with 102 points, silencing doubters and reigniting Pittsburgh's love for hockey. Still, the league tested him. Opponents slashed, hit, and taunted him. Critics called him too emotional. Crosby answered not with words, but with performance. Ovechkin edged him for the Calder Trophy, but it didn't matter. Crosby had done something bigger. He saved the Penguins. Fans returned. Relocation talks died. Hope was reborn. And then came his explosion. In just his second season at 19, Crosby racked up 120 points, won the Art Ross as scoring champ, the Hart as MVP, and was named the youngest permanent captain in NHL history. But greatness came with pain. The Penguins' playoff run ended quickly in 2007. Crosby didn't see it as progress. His answer was sharp: we didn't win. The next year, they reached the Stanley Cup final against Detroit but fell short. Crosby stood on home ice, forced to watch the Red Wings celebrate. The image burned in him. 1 year later, he got his revenge. In 2009, Pittsburgh and Detroit clashed again. this time going the distance. In Game 7, inside Joe Louis Arena, the Penguins won 2-1. At just 21, Sidney Crosby became the youngest captain in NHL history to hoist the Stanley Cup. The picture of him lifting it, eyes blazing, hands shaking, was more than a personal triumph. It was Pittsburgh's rebirth. And yet, this was only the beginning. The weight of a franchise, the expectations of a nation, and the pursuit of greatness still lay ahead. By 2009, Sidney Crosby had already achieved what most players only dream about. He was a Stanley Cup champion, a scoring leader, and the face of a franchise that had risen from near collapse. But for Crosby, the journey was only beginning. Because true greatness isn't just reaching the top once, it's proving you can rise again after every setback. The years after that first cup were filled with both triumph and hardship. Crosby entered the new decade as the league's brightest star, but also with a target on his back. Every game, opponents came harder, checked rougher, slashed deeper. He wasn't just playing hockey. He was carrying the expectations of a city, a country, and a league hungry for heroes. Nowhere was that pressure heavier than the 2010 Winter Olympics in Vancouver. For Canada, hockey is more than a sport. It's pride, identity, and history. And on home soil, nothing short of gold would do. At just 22, Crosby found himself at the center of that dream. He wasn't the oldest or most experienced on the roster, but he had the rare ability to rise in the biggest moments. Canada stumbled early, losing to the United States in the group stage, but Crosby pushed harder as the tournament grew tougher. Then came February 28, 2010, the gold medal game against Team USA. Canada clung to a late lead, only for the Americans to tie it in the final seconds. A nation held its breath. 7 minutes into overtime, Crosby took a pass from Jarome Iginla, slipped past the defense, and snapped the puck under Ryan Miller's pads. The red light flashed. The crowd erupted. A nation roared. Sidney Crosby, the golden goal. That single shot etched Crosby into Canadian legend. It wasn't just a goal. It was the goal, a moment frozen in time, replayed endlessly, forever tied to his name. But while the cheers still echo, reality returned. Glory fades. Pain doesn't. Back in the NHL, Crosby was on pace for historic numbers in the 2010-11 season, minus 32 goals and 66 points in just 41 games, a pace for nearly 130 points. He was unstoppable, until everything changed in an instant. On January 1, 2011, at the Winter Classic, a blindside hit to the head left Crosby shaken. Days later, another collision made things worse. The diagnosis, a concussion. What followed was one of the darkest chapters of his career. Headaches, dizziness, sensitivity to light. Symptoms lingered for months. Fans and experts began to whisper, will he ever be the same? Some feared his career might already be over. For Crosby, it became the greatest battle of his life, not against an opponent, but against his own body. Watching from the sidelines while his teammates fought on was torture. But he refused to quit. He attacked rehab with the same intensity he brought to the ice. And in November 2011, after months of doubt, he returned in storybook fashion, scoring a brilliant goal in his very first game back. The hockey world exhaled. The kid from Cole Harbour was still here. But the road remained rough. Crosby missed long stretches over the next 2 seasons with recurring symptoms. The doubt never completely left. Could he ever again be the player who once dominated so effortlessly? By 2013, the answer was clear. Yes, Crosby was back for top, leading the Penguins and reclaiming his place as the NHL's standard bearer. And when the Olympics returned in 2014, he delivered again. In the gold medal game against Sweden, Crosby broke free on a breakaway and buried a backhander to seal another Canadian triumph. 2 Olympics, 2 golden moments. Through cups and concussions, setbacks and triumphs, Crosby showed his career was about more than skill. It was about resilience, carrying the weight of expectation and never letting it break him. And still, destiny had more in store. More championships, more challenges, and the chance to cement his place, not just as the best of his generation, but among the greatest to ever play the game. By 2015, Sidney Crosby was no longer the kid chasing legends. He was a legend. But for Crosby, there was still unfinished business. Concussions had stolen time, and critics whispered his best days might be over. The Penguins, too, were stuck. With stars like Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and Marc-Andre Fleury, they had talent but kept falling short after their 2009 Cup. Change was needed, and it came. Mike Sullivan took over as coach in late 2015, demanding accountability while unleashing the team's speed. New faces like Phil Kessel, Connor Sheary, and Brian Rust brought fresh energy. The Penguins became fast, relentless, and dangerous. Crosby thrived. No longer chasing numbers, he set the tone with sacrifice and determination. His teammates followed his example, and in the spring of 2016, the Penguins surged to the Stanley Cup final. On June 12, they defeated the San Jose Sharks, and Crosby lifted the cup for the second time. earning the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. A year later, he did it again. Despite injuries and exhaustion, Crosby led the Penguins to back-to-back championships in 2017, defeating the Nashville Predators and once more capturing the Conn Smythe. In 2 years, he had silenced doubts and built a dynasty. What set Crosby apart wasn't just winning, it was how he won. He wasn't chasing records or headlines. He led by trust, respect, and example, first on the ice and last to leave it. Off the rink, he stayed humble, carrying himself like a craftsman who loved the game more than fame. That same year, he added another triumph, captaining Team Canada to World Cup of Hockey victory, where he was named Tournament MVP. Once again, the bigger the stage, the brighter he shined. By then, there was no debate. Crosby wasn't just one of the best players of his time, he was defining it. His legacy was clear, a builder of dynasties, a master of comebacks, and proof that greatness is measured not only in talent, but in resilience and sacrifice. When he lifted his third Stanley Cup in 2017, Crosby stood as more than a champion. He was a symbol. The boy from Cole Harbour had become the captain of a dynasty. By 2018, Sidney Crosby had already done it all. 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Conn Smythes, Olympic gold, and a World Cup MVP. He was a hero in Pittsburgh, a household name in Canada, and a respected leader across the NHL. But Crosby never thought about what he had done. His focus was always on what came next. The league was changing. New stars like Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, and Nathan MacKinnon were taking over. Most veterans in Crosby's position might have slowed down. Crosby did the opposite. He adapted. He became a mentor, guiding rookies and inspiring veterans. He never shouted or demanded. He led by example, showing up early, practicing hardest, and working as if he was still fighting for a spot. His dedication lifted everyone around him. Even rivals like McDavid and Ovechkin admitted his complete game was unmatched. Off the ice, he stayed humble. No spotlight chasing, no empty words, just substance. He crossed 1,000 points, climbed the all-time scoring charts, and kept battling through injuries, proving his love for the game outweighed the pain. The Penguins didn't win every year, but Crosby never blamed, never complained. He carried responsibility and kept pushing forward. That persistence became part of his legacy, not just measured in trophies, but in inspiration. He became a bridge between eras, the golden legends of Gretzky and Lemieux on one side, the new superstars on the other, and in between stood Crosby, the link connecting hockey's past to its future. By 2020, his place among the greatest was secure, but Crosby never joined those debates. His mission was simple, to be the best version of himself every single day. For young fans, he showed that greatness came from resilience and work. For older fans, he was a reminder of hockey's golden traditions. Crosby wasn't just chasing history anymore, he was living it. And as he skated into his mid-30s, still producing at an elite level, one question remained, not, is he one of the greatest, but how far will his legacy reach? Because legends don't fade, they endure, and Sidney Crosby's story was still being written. As Sidney Crosby skated into his mid-30s, the question was no longer if he'd be remembered, but how. His resume spoke for itself. Over 1,500 points, 500 goals, 3 Stanley Cups, 2 Olympic golds, and a trophy case overflowing with Harts, Conn Smythes, and Rocket Richards. By any measure, skill, leadership, consistency, Crosby stood among the greatest, but his true legacy wasn't numbers, it was endurance. 2 decades in Pittsburgh, carrying the weight of a franchise and the hopes of a city. Through concussions, broken bones, and endless scrutiny, Crosby never faded. He turned obstacles into proof of his resilience. By the 2020s, Crosby was no longer the young phenom chasing headlines. He had become hockey's elder statesman, respected by rivals, revered by teammates, and trusted as the voice of experience. He embodied loyalty in a sport defined by trades and humility in a world chasing attention. And he never stopped producing. Even as new stars like McDavid and Matthews took the spotlight, Crosby remained elite. For Pittsburgh fans, every milestone became a celebration. For younger players, he was the blueprint of how to be both star and leader. For older fans, he was the bridge from the golden eras of Gretzky and Lemieux to the modern game. When his career ends, his Hall of Fame induction will be a formality. But what will endure is not just the points or the trophies, it's the loyalty, the humility, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. From a boy with a stick in Cole Harbour to the savior of a franchise, the captain of a nation, and the rival of legends, Crosby wrote his own chapter in hockey's history. A chapter defined not by hype, but by resilience and greatness that lasted. Because legends don't retire, they live forever.